And joining us now, we have a second Vice President of the PSA, Mr. Avinash Maharajh. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mikee K. Good evening to all your viewers, both on television and via the World Wide Web throughout the world.
Now, the PSA, along with the other unions, have an uproar over the SRC's proposed pay hike for government officials. I believe it was yesterday the PSA Mounto members were out and about protesting.
Yes, that's correct, Mikee K. Our members at the North Central Regional Health Authority, Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex, were in uproar over the proposed increases by the Salary Reviews Commission. Not so much for the reason that the increases are large when you look at it, but the mere fact that what juxtaposed that against what is being offered to them, what is being offered to public officers of 4%, which is grossly inadequate. As our president put it, those are slave wages. 4% is grossly inadequate, and it's something that we could never accede to. If a 30 to 35% increase is good for them, and we don't begrudge them that, but surely the same formula that is being used by the Salary Reviews Commission should be applied for public officers who are also very, very hardworking and deserving of something a lot more and more in line with the SRC proposals. And that, Mikee K, is what has caused outrage, not only amongst the North Central Regional Health Authority workers, but pockets throughout our membership in the public service are feeling the same way.
Yeah, and to make it clear, yesterday your president, Leroy Batiste, made it quite clear that the PSA is the only union that has not accepted the CPO's offer. And as you just mentioned, you're not condemning as far as the SRC, but you're saying that the union is condemning the CPO and government for not putting a better offer on the table for those, according to your president, who work very hard daily and are struggling to make ends meet given the rising cost of living. But let me ask you this, how did we get here? Do you believe that there was too much games being played? I mean, because at one point in time, they were offered 14, 15, they were uproar, it was all a bunch of nonsense. Now, all of a sudden, people are signing on to this 4% and still can't get the 4% because a lot of them didn't get the back pay that was promised to them. Even though they gave in, they still weren't getting it. How did we get here, Mr. Maharajh? I mean, political interference is one thing, but on the side of the unions, was there too many games being played?
Mikee, let me put something in context, and I just want to clarify something before we move on. PSA is not the only union that has not signed off for the 4%. The daily paid workers unions, NUJFW, and the contractors and general workers unions have not signed off on the 4%. Their matters are also at the court, so it's not only the PSA. But how have we reached here? And we put this, and it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, Mikee K, that we're saying that this is a 4% offer, but the reality is this. For the 2008-2010 period that was settled in 2012 by the previous administration, there was an increase of 9% that we got. For the period 2011 to 2013, there was a 14% increase. Now, as you would see, those are 3-year periods. This 4% offer that is being given to public officers is over a 6-year period. So for 14 to 16 is 2%. 17 to 19 is 2%. That is the offer. So it's really a 2% offer by a follow 2% offer if you want to compare it to the previous periods. So that in itself is a slap in the face to public officers. How we reached here? In 2015, when there was a change in government, the PSA would have submitted its proposals to commence negotiations. This government refused to meet with the unions for negotiations. For 2016, 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, they refused to meet. In 2022, the Minister of Finance came out like a king and decreed commence negotiations. And only after 2 meetings, Mikee K, 2 meetings, the government decided to send this matter to the Special Tribunal and send it to court. The unions had no options. We wanted to negotiate. We think that something more along the lines of what was offered to the SRC would have been a lot more fair and equitable, given, as you mentioned, the rising cost of living over that period. When you look at food prices increasing by over 50%, how many times did they raise the cost of gasoline? Super gasoline went up by 161%.
Yeah,
right?
but we only hear these narratives conveniently, Mr. Maharajh, because the president of the PSA is saying that because the government could play games, it's a recommendation there by tabling it in Parliament to just see people's reactions. And all they will do is postpone taking action and have persons feeling like they are not going to do anything with that. So even if the government says, listen, because the opposition has made it quite clear, the opposition leader has made it quite clear, this should be going to public servants who deserve it. People who do a lot of hard work day in and out. And if this is a game, and let's say the government says, no, we decide not to do it, that's not going to change the fact that you just mentioned that people are finding it hard to pay for food, to pay for rent, to send their children to school, to keep their head above water. No matter how these games play out, it's still not in the interest of the working class who are trying to make ends meet on a daily basis.
And you are correct, Mikee K, and that's why there's no way that we can accede to this 4%. As I said, if you look at the percentage increases in cost of living, juxtapose that against the 4% that's being offered, it is grossly inadequate. But to make things worse, Mikee K, and I want to point this out too, the government is leveraging on the desperation of public officers by wanting to now change this very set formula for calculating increases and back pay. The formula that has been used from time immemorial, whereby cost of living allowance was consolidated to the salary prior to the percentage being applied to for the increases. They want to remove that. So they even want to change the very set formula. This is regressive negotiations 100 years back. And this regime feels that they can get away with it. And I'm telling you that the Public Services Association is not going to stand for that. Our members are agitating. As you can see, that it started in North Central and it will continue. But we will not stand for allowing this government to get away with regressive negotiations 100 years back for public officers by changing its very set formula by which increases and back pay is to be calculated. They're going to be robbing public officers, Mikee K, of $30,000 in back pay automatically.
Yeah.
$30,000 in back pay they're going to be robbed of. The increases, you're asking them to give up $450 increase to take $200. How does that make economic sense? We cannot allow public officers to continue to bear the burden of adjustment. If we look at the private sector, over the same period, there were increases of over 19% across the board, on average in the private sector. But you're coming to offer 4% to public officers and still rob them by changing the formula by which we're going to calculate increases and back pay. That is something that we cannot tolerate. Yeah, and we will not stand for it.
And you're right, and these submissions were made early to this government, but there had to have been indicators, red flags, that made it quite clear to you and your membership that this is not a working class friendly government, it is not a union friendly government.
It is not. And they are coming after us. The union is under attack, and all unions are under attack like never before. We recognized it very early on. Our predecessor, Mr. Watson Duke, recognized it. We have been agitating. We have been encouraging our members to come out and protest. But as you know, Mikee K, the matters are now before the court. It limits the type of action that we have to, that we can take. They have deemed us as essential workers, Mikee K, and the law restricts us from taking certain types of action. You saw what happened with the teachers' union. You saw that they filed an injunction and threatened to decertify the union. This is a regime that does not believe in democracy. They do not believe in the rights of workers. They weaponize the law to prevent the unions from taking collective action and for workers seeking their own interests. Prime Minister himself would have said that he believes in trickle-down economics. The rich must get richer, and whatever trickles down to the poor, that's their economic policy. That could never be a policy for working-class people to succeed in this country.
It can never be. 30 seconds, go with your closing comments, and please address it to the members of the PSA, because many are looking on, and I'm sure they want to know what the next move is going to be and what comfort you could bring them. Please, go ahead.
Yes, so to the members, we want to tell you all, we have your best interest at heart. This 4% offer is something that we cannot accept. We understand that that the economic times are tough, but we will get through this. This time too shall pass. Keep your ears to the ground. Follow us on Facebook. Keep listening to the news, and you will be instructed as to our next steps. And we hope that you all, for your future, your children's future, and your children's children's future, we must take collective action. Stay tuned for the next steps.
Thank you so much, Second Vice President Avinash Maharajh. Best of luck to you and your entire team. Please do not give up the fight. On behalf of the working class and the people who are trying to struggle on a daily basis, please don't ever, ever give up.
Thank you, Mikey.
Thank you so much.